Hey everyone, how you doing? This is Amon Green, Gourmet Packers all-time leading rusher, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packer content. Go Pack, go!
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Joined alongside Tim in Green Bay. We are live on YouTube, Facebook, X, Rumble. And of course, you can catch us on Patreon at patreon.com/PackerFan Total Access. Tim, how you doing today, buddy? I'm about dog butt tired, been out chopping wood. Whew, it was everything I had to hit go live just now, man. I almost said, should I pull a fast one? But we're here, man.
I'm right there with you, man. I'm a little tired myself. Did a lot of stuff around the house. Supposedly Sunday's a day of rest, but that didn't happen today. Getting ready for the week,
Hardly ever works like that for me, that's for sure. So that's the world we live in. Hopefully everybody's having an awesome Sunday evening here on this glorious May the 4th be with you. I hear people say that, and I think that's so witty. That's cool. Tim, I have never seen one single Star Wars movie.
What?
Have you watched them all? Have you watched one?
No, not all 17,000 of them. No, I have not seen all of them. The first cropping, though, yeah, I remember the old ones, the classics. But yeah, I was never a big Star Wars guy either myself. Got a lot of friends though that are total Star Wars nerds for sure. And this is their day. This is their holiday. So
I feel like I know the entire story because I've heard people talk about it my entire life, but I never have sat down and watched any of it. So as you guys know, I'm not a big movie person anyway. But let's see. We got a couple questions in here, and then here's what we're going to do today, guys. We'll hit a couple questions here in the chat. We'll go to the Patreon questions. We got a couple in there, and then we're going to talk about the depth chart on the defensive side of the ball and just kind of lay that out, okay? And if we have time, we'll do the Savion Williams Chalk Talk. If not, we'll bend it in to tomorrow. But we got plenty of time this offseason to cover everything, and going to try to keep this depth chart talk at the forefront because I think it is very, very interesting. We got Taylor, the Packers News, here in the chat says, Clayton, do you think Kenny and Gary will get back to 2023? That's a great question, Taylor. I think that they should take a step forward this year. At least Gary will. I don't know if Kenny will, simply because, guys, Kenny's 30 years old, right? He's going to be 30 this year, and he came in the league when he was 20, if I remember correctly. So as much as people like to get those players in here young, it's still the same amount of time on your body in the league, right? So he's approaching now, if he did come in at 20, he's approaching his 10th year in the league, it looks like, 2016. Yeah, so next year will be his 10th year in the league, I believe. So not this coming season, but the next season. So, it's rare that a defensive tackle makes it 10 years in the league. So I think it's a testament to the player Kenny has been in the past. But let me just put his PFF up here. And what I wanted to say here, Tim, as he was asking this question is, when you say, can he get back to 2023, man, 2023 only graded out as a 70.4. And I know he had a lot more sacks, but they were attacking the quarterback much different. So when you talk about will he get back to 2023, I think he could definitely get back to that level of play. But to me, Tim, it's just not worth the money we're paying. I kind of feel like he is primed for a pay cut next year. Is that cap number is going to blimp up to something like $30 million cap hit for the year 2026. So as you can see here over the course of his career, 74, 87, 90, guys, that was in 2018. Yep. Since 2018, he has declined every year but one, and that was 2023 where he took a slight step up. So in 2018, he was a 90.2. Then he drops to a 79, drops to a 76, drops to a 75, drops all the way to a 66, jumps back up to a 70.4, and then last year drops back down to a 60. So, Tim, I think it's unrealistic to expect Rashawn Gary to kind of return back to that 90s form, right, in the 90s PFF grade-wise. And, again, I think some of it with the low grade last year, you got to take into account how they utilized him, how they played him. When they were in their nickel defense, he was that one tech, and he was eating up a lot of double teams and was kind of playing that touch spy we talked about. And I think he played a pretty pivotal role in the run defense, although PFF disagrees here. But what do you think about the question here about we'll start with Kenny, then we'll get to Gary.
Yeah, I think you're right. Just looking at at Kenny's numbers there. I mean, really 17, 18, 19 was kind of the prime for him. And I think you're kidding yourself if you think anyone's going to, turn 30. He'll be 30 in October this year. October baby like me. I think honestly, yeah, if we could get him back somewhere near those numbers, the grading above 70 would be nice. And I think that might be what Taylor's talking about here.
Right.
You look at that, it's kind of a bright spot the last 3 years was the 2023 grade. But hey, let's face it. I think the Packers are hanging on to the final Ted Thompson draft pick of the organization, and we brought in a giant crop of new defensive linemen that an elder statesman like Kenny Clark is going to help kind of show them the way.
Yep.
And bring them into into their own as pros as they get their legs under them. And I don't want to say transitioning into like a player coach type of role, but clearly I think that's where they see a lot of the value is they're willing to deal with maybe a little bit lower production grades out of him as he gets a little bit older, but he is the glue in that defensive locker room, with that D line group. That's the leader. It's goes without saying, really. It's kind of just assumed, I think, at this point. And Kenny's got a good way of, I've seen him at camp plenty of times, taking guys under his wing, providing clarity with what they're looking to do and things. So, I still agree with you, though. I mean, what the contract is versus what we're getting, just looking at the numbers and the production, yeah, it leaves something to be desired. But I think the Packers are paying Kenny Clark for more than strictly just the on-field reps. And then Rashawn, I think Rashawn's a guy that it all depends on how Coach Half really wants to utilize him this year 2 in this scheme. Like you said, we saw him last year, basically Mr. Double Team, and fighting through doubles, which allowed some other guys to do some work on that line. And that's, kind of like how Hafley likes to approach it, right? With the stunts and the twists and, occupy a blocker, create a lane, a rush lane for somebody else, dial up the occasional nickel blitz or something to add a little flair. But, I think Rashawn can get back to, premier numbers again, grading well above 70, mid 70s would be a good start. Rashawn's a little bit younger, so I don't think there's a reason why we couldn't see 23 or 2022 type numbers, right? Low 80s, high 70s. I think it could happen.
Yeah, and Rashawn Gary's kind of the opposite of Kenny Clark. He came in for a full year and just kind of sat back and played behind Zadarius and Preston. I believe in 2020 he did the same thing. As he began to get a little more acclimated into that role as that third edge rusher. And then, of course, 2021, he steps in as a starter and blows up. He was the 5th highest graded pass rusher at an 89.8. 2022, he drops to an 82.9. Of course, that's the year, I believe, he was the 15th highest graded pass rusher. That's the year he tears the ACL. And then coming back his first year back from the ACL in 2023, he grades out a 79.0, which is solid for coming off an ACL. And, of course, last year he drops to a 73.0, being the 28th highest graded edge defender. Now, when you look at the tape with Gary, I want to say it was week 8 or week 9 that we pulled that stat where he was chipped 6th most in the league, or maybe it was 5th most in the league. I know he was being chipped at that point in the season more than TJ Watt, more than Nick Bosa, and there was some other dominant edge defender that he was being chipped more. And, again, people like to pretend like, and I'm not saying that Taylor's doing this. I know you're not, Bub, but people like to pretend like this pass rush was horrible last year. They were 8th in the league in sacks. I heard somebody say they were tied for 7th. I thought it was 8th, but evidently it was 7th in the league for sacks. Guess who led the team in sacks? It was Rashawn Gary.
Yep.
Guess who had the most run stops of any edge defender in the entire National Football League? It was Rashawn Gary. And again, that's, to me, what I seen last year was more of an emphasis on stopping the run in Hafley's first year. They may go back to that this year. They may pin their ears back and say, you know what, we're going to sacrifice the run a little bit and get after the quarterback a little bit more. I thought they found the perfect balance. And this isn't hindsight me saying this. Last year, I was getting roasted because I was turning on the tape, and then I would hear radio hosts literally who do this for a living, ironically, would talk as Rashawn Gary. I watched him get blocked by a tight. That's the one that gets me the most is him getting blocked by a tight end. And you watch that exact play, and you can see Gary not trying to rush the quarterback. He's protecting a rush lane, and it's like these people have no clue what they're looking at. They have it's not that they're dumb or anyone's any smarter than them. They're too lazy to actually try to understand what's this defense trying to do right here.
Right.
And now it's funny after the season's over. Guess what I've heard here lately over the last couple of weeks? Oh yeah, they're 7th and 8th, and they were 8th and rushing or sacking the quarterback. And I'm going, boy, y'all didn't have this energy last year. That's like another guy covers the Packers who will remain nameless. Was on this. I mean, he was on his mountaintop last year talking about Josh Myers was one of the best centers in the game, and he didn't understand why fans hated him so much. And he's going to get the bag. He's going to get paid and this and that. He ends up getting less than $2 million on a 1-year deal.
Yep.
Like. I don't know, man. I understand there's some people that cover the team and they don't dive into the X's and O's. They don't really care about understanding everything about the game. They're more reporting on the players, reporting on, like Jason Wilde, one of my favorite podcasts. He's not an X's and O's guy, and he'll tell you that. He's not a let me break down the tape or explain to you guys, what a torch stun is. He's not that dude. He loves to cover the emotion of the game. He covers the stories of the players and their backgrounds and how he tells the story of the season without getting too caught up or too in depth in the stats and the analytics and everything. I appreciate that about him. That's something I think is very valuable. That comment wasn't geared toward him. It's just other people who pretend like they're breaking down the tape and they ain't got a damn clue what they're talking about. It just drives me insane. So to the question with Rashawn Gary, are they going to pin their ears back or are they going to run more stunts on the outside? Because Gary's game is power rushing. That's what he does. Line him up in a wide 9 and run through the tackle's face. They didn't have him doing a whole lot of that last year. And they had him working an ET stunt or playing off of a TE stunt and all those and really keying in on the run game. So I think, Taylor, what you'll see with Rashawn Gary, it all depends on how Hafley calls the defense. And the same thing with Kenny Clark. If they were to switch Kenny Clark and Devontae Wyatt up and say, Devontae Wyatt, we want you to play one tech in our nickel 4-2-5, I guarantee you Kenny's numbers would go up. I have less faith in Kenny improving at this point, though, just because Father Time's catching up, man. He's going to be 30 years old. He's been in the league it's going to be 10 years next year. He's been in the league going on 9 years. So as for Rashawn Gary, even though it's showing, what is this, Tim, 6 years, he's really only been playing a significant amount of snaps, 4 to 5, 4.5 or 4.5 seasons. So hopefully that answered your question there, Taylor. Appreciate you, bub. And let's see here. We got one more, and then we'll jump into the Patreon question. Packer Fan 22 says, if Isaiah Bond gets cleared of all charges, how would we feel about adding him to the team as an undrafted free agent?
Do we need another freaking receiver in Green Bay?
On the surface, I want to say Baron Sorrell, Matthew Golden, right? You got these guys that are Texas guys. And listen, Isaiah Bond was a top 30 visit. But I'm with you, Tim. That room's crowded, man. I mean, who are you going to cut, right? So I think Packer Fan 22, my answer would be no. What about you, Tim?
Today, my answer would be no as well. Now, if nobody signs Bond and he's cleared and we start making our way into preseason and we have some guys getting cut, you see new faces invited to camp all the time. Guys, sign a whatever that is, the 15-day contract or whatever, come see what you can do. And maybe we'll feel differently depending on how the receiver room looks at that point or if there's a trade or something. But I would say no right now. Yeah. I'm hearing it's who's in the front running right now. I heard something about Washington was considering.
I heard a couple of teams. There was rumors around they may pick him up, but I don't know, man. I think they'll probably let the legality aspect of that play out before they, go making a big signing. So appreciate the question there, Packer Fan 22. You are the man. All right, let's go to the Patreon group here. Nick McSwain asked the question over here. If you guys want to join our Patreon community, it's the best way to support the show for $3. Get access to everything on the site. We've got, I think I've dropped 2 more articles today. It's where all the chalk talks are going to be stored. Everything you need to cover to follow the 2025 Green Bay Packers is going to be right in there. Just a ton of information. Scan the QR code in the upper right or go to patreon.com/PackerFan Total Access. It also gets you entered into the giveaways as we're going to be giving away a Bo Melton autographed rookie card. I'm going to need one more day on it, guys. I did not get the will set up tonight as today got a little hectic. So we'll do that giveaway tomorrow. And we're going to continue to try to do a giveaway at least every 2 weeks, maybe one a week if we get enough stuff in there. We got several jerseys we're going to be giving away here in the future as well. So again, just make sure you're a member of the Patreon group, and that'll get you into that those giveaways. So Nick McSwain says, "Sup, fellas? I know this is only the second draft under Hafley, but I was curious if y'all have noticed any difference in how they're drafting players on defense. For instance, maybe altering their thresholds for certain positions." Appreciate y'all. It's a great question, Nick. I'm not going to try to fake this on you. I haven't done like any extensive research on whether or not they've changed anything. I will say this, though. This year, it did feel like they got away from RAS a little bit, or at least athletic scores. However, Baron Sorrell, he's in the nines, right? Like there's still plenty of guys that are in the nines and in the eights that they're drafting. But I want to say there was a player or two late in the draft that they went outside of those normal thresholds. I know our boy Colin Oliver, which I'm really excited to get to his chalk talk a little later in the week. He's someone who's very undersized. You know, people keep saying he's 6'2", 250 pounds. His RAS guard, Tim, was 6'1" and in the 240s. So for all those people that said that there was no way they would draft James Pierce Jr. because he was too small, it's obvious that was a non-factor for Goody, seeing they brought him in for a top 30 visit. They knew how big he was before they had the top 30 visit. So I don't know, Tim, have you noticed anything? For me, I haven't really noticed anything specific there in terms of them changing up how they draft. I know I'm happy with the way they drafted this year. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And, like you, I haven't done like a deep dive on this or anything. And, that being said, I don't think I've seen anything that's like glaringly obvious and stood out that may make me think that. But I think you're right, especially about Colin Oliver. I mean, so there might be an example right there. Even some of these UDFAs that they just snatched up here as well. We have to get into them a little bit more in depth to see. But right now it looks like they were focused on putting a good draft class together, and I think they did. And, I was a little shocked at how it turned out. I didn't think we'd go receiver, O-line receiver, but that was awesome. That was a nice little treat there. And then we loaded up on defense, So I think they're focused on giving these coaches and coordinators every opportunity to have talented athletes out there. So I think it would be a safe bet to say that Goody, if it was up to him, he's not going to deviate too much from the thresholds that they have established. But I think there's some wiggle room in there. And at the end of the day, you want damn good football players, right? You don't just want, the physical freak that can't perform. So I think they're willing to always kind of keep their options open.
I think the big thing is Senior Bowl. They love those guys. I want to say, 5 of the 8 draft picks were Senior Bowl participants, I believe. That's kind of the number one parameter they like to use because they get a firsthand look at how these guys going up against competition at their level or better. And that's something that Baron Sorrell really shined at the Senior Bowl, and they end up taking him, obviously. So David in the chat confirms Washington signed Bonds yesterday. So it sounds like Isaiah Bond did get signed by Washington yesterday.
Okay, so that's official.
Yeah. I know, like you had said too, Tim, there were some rumors around that. But
yeah, I didn't see anything official. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And Holmes MD1 in the Patreon questions group says, chopped up some tape on Baldwin today. Seems like he could be solid to develop for the practice squad if nothing else to start. I think you're spot on there, Holmes. I think Baldwin, he may come out in camp flash and make the roster. Who knows? But I think he is kind of primed for the practice squad. And one of those guys will look up in a year and a half, 2 years and go, hey, this dude's come along pretty nicely. Kind of like Zane Anderson when he got his opportunity last year. I want to say we may have carried him on the 53 every year he's here, Tim. I can't remember, but he definitely didn't see a lot of playing time, But,
and Zane just signed an extension, didn't he? I saw that or something.
He may have. I may have missed it. I know he signed that, whatever the futures was.
Maybe that's what I was. Okay.
I was thinking it was a 1-year deal, but it may have been maybe 2 or 3 years. But anyway, appreciate everybody with the Patreon questions. Y'all are awesome over there. Again, just a good way to get your voice heard here on the show. All right, Tim, let's jump into a little depth chart talk. That sound good to you, man?
Yeesh.
All right. So we covered the offensive side yesterday. That was a lot of fun. I think this is the perfect time as rookie mini camp winding down. Let's look at the depth chart. Then they're going to break, and I believe we got some dates here. Let me pull them up, get them rolling on the screen here anyway. So May 12th, rookie football development programs begins. All right, and then May 14th is the NFLPA rookie premiere. Also May 14th, the NFL 2025 schedule release. Okay, that's going to be at 7 p.m. Central, so we will be live when that happens. That'll be exciting. And then May 28th, pretty much through June 5th, are OTAs. Okay, so basically what we're going to have is about a 2-week break here, Tim. About a 10-day break. We'll get some more news, and then we'll step right into the OTA aspect, and we'll do exactly what we did with rookie minicamp. I got great feedback on us just kind of giving those updates from the camp, so we'll do that with OTAs as well. But what we're going to do now is just kind of dive into the depth chart, and let's set the stage. All right, what's the roster look like right now? We'll hear some rumors coming out of rookie OTAs and things like that, and then once you get into OTAs, they'll be talking about who flashed at it, and then you might take another look at the depth chart. I just think it's never too early to start seeing how this roster may shape up. And here's what we got on the defensive side of the ball. Tim, let's start in the middle with defensive tackle, okay? So you'll notice here from our lads, nose tackle, defensive tackle, okay? And again, I know there's people that thinks Kenny Clark's a 3-tech. You'll see here they have him as the nose. That's what he predominantly played last year, where we were in that nickel 4-2. You see they say a base of 4-2 instead of a 4-3 because we were probably in that over 70% of the snaps on defense last year. So here's how the depth chart lays out right now, Tim. Nose tackle is Kenny Clark. D tackle or 3-tech, Devontae White. Backing up Kenny in the nose is Carl Brooks. I think many people didn't realize just how much 1-tech Carl played last year. It was all over the tape, though. They're showing the backup to Devontae White at 3-tech as Kobe Wooden. I would disagree with that. I think that you might want to try to work in Warren Brinson. Boy, I got that back.
I know all these names, man. There's so many names.
They're so new, so new. Warren Brinson, I could see him competing with Kobe Wooden to fight for that 3-tech. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Carl Brooks kicks into the 3 from time to time as well. But you've also got behind Warren Brinson at nose tackle, you've got Nazir Stackhouse. And I know he was a UDFA, but Nazir Stackhouse is one of those guys, Tim. He was highly scouted last year. You know, people were talking about him being a potential 3rd-round pick as the last I heard, and then he just kind of falls off the face of the earth. But if you bounce back to 3-tech, they've got James Esther and then Nesta Jade Silvera with Keith Randolph behind him as a 3-tech. So when you look at this, and I need to pull up my article again on how many we carried. I'll try to find that real quick. But on the surface, man, what I see are 5 that are locks for the roster. And you guys know we talked about 3-tech going into the offseason. Like, I would love to see them draft the 3-tech of the future, you know? And when I say a 3-tech, it's you could get someone who could play nose, but when you're in the nickel so often, you want someone who's built more like a 3-tech to play the nose in that base 4-2-5 because you're going to be getting after the quarterback out of that nickel a lot. So with that being said, I think those 5 are Devontae White, Kenny Clark, Carl Brooks, Kobe Wooden, and Warren Brinson. I wouldn't be surprised if they do carry 6 that Nazir Stackhouse rises to the occasion and passes James Esther up. But what do you think, Tim? How do you see the defensive tackle spot, man?
I agree. I think Nas Stackhouse is probably a pretty good 1-tech option. But, like, I think it's pretty much the same way. I'm not sure about some of these other guys. I'm not familiar with Randolph or Silvera and Jeremiah Martin. But feel pretty good about the crop that we have here. Just kind of way too early depth chart prediction here. But I'm with you, Clay. I think Nas Stackhouse would be the one I would keep an eye on that could move up the depth chart and kind of make a name for himself here as a UDFA. And I also agree with the the sentiment of, Colby Wooden maybe not necessarily being, number 2 behind Devontae Wyatt. So we'll see.
Yeah. Coach Lynn says we got 3 Georgia boys on the defensive line, man. Goody loves those Georgia guys. There's no doubt about it.
Them Bulldogs.
So we broke camp last year at the defensive tackle position, Tim, first year under Jeff Hafley, with 5 defensive tackles. They were Kenny Clark, TJ Slayton, Devontae Wyatt, Carl Brooks, and Colby Wooden. So TJ Slayton obviously signed I think a 1-year, $7 million deal somewhere that he went.
Cincinnati, I believe.
Yeah, so that's the void you're most likely filling. And to me, Nazir Stackhouse fits that mold as a nose tackle, big boy there, and perfect number to wear too, number 93, right? TJ Slayton and the Grave Diggers number there. So,
and Stackhouse fits that mold, right? He's a big guy, right?
Thick.
There's a chance you could carry 6, but if they say, you know what, we're gonna roll Carl Brooks out there at nose tackle, and then try to work Warren Brinson in where you can, or maybe you kick Warren Brinson up to the backup nose tackle and play Carl Brooks in the 3 tech and slide Colby Wooden down on the step chart. I could see that as well. If you carry 6, it's going to be Stackhouse because of that nose tackle, ability there. So that's kind of how I see that personally with the defensive tackle room. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, not thrilled with it. I'm not thrilled with it for the reasons I just talked about. Like Kenny Clark, I expect he may get a little better from last year, which it's not really saying a whole lot when you grade out 60, right? But if he can stabilize at a 65, okay, we'll be all right. But in terms of depth, I really don't think people understand the role that TJ Slayton played last year. He had the second highest pressure percentage amongst defensive tackles on the team, if I remember correctly. He was only behind Devontae Wyatt. He had a better quarterback pressure rate than Kenny Clark. And he was that traditional nose tackle where you could kick Kenny to 3 if you needed to put our boy in there. So, and Devontae Wyatt, of course, last year he battled that ankle injury, if I remember correctly, there toward the end of the year and into the playoffs. So you're one injury away from being kind of in a bad spot at defensive tackle. And that's why I was pressing so hard into the draft process of, man, probably need to go get a defensive tackle. So that's kind of how I see it. Again, I think Devontae Wyatt could take a step forward. He's a great pass rusher. I say great. I think he's a very good pass rusher. He's a top 23 pass rusher in terms of defensive tackles in the entire NFL. It's his run game that he struggles with a little bit, tackling ability, that type of thing. So anything else on defensive tackle before we move to edge, Tim?
That's a great point about Wyatt. That's where you want to see him take a step in the run fit, not necessarily the pass rush. And a lot of it's probably just technique for him. And hopefully as he develops as a pro, that continues to improve.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's go to edge defender. Let's talk about the starters first here. Rashawn Gary at left defensive end. Lucas Van Ness at right defensive end. And then backing up Gary, they've got our boy Barron Sorrell. I think he's going to be a good NFL player, man. I really do. I think as excited as I was for Kingsley Enagbare, who just happens to be backing up Lucas Van Ness here, I think Barron Sorrell is coming into the league with a lot more to work with than Kingsley Enagbare had. I think Barron Sorrell is way better against the run than Kingsley was coming out of college. Kingsley just got that frame, man. He's built like a freak edge rusher. But Barron Sorrell is he's a lot thicker, and I think he's someone who can definitely play the run better than Kingsley. So, again, those are your top 4 there. Rashawn Gary, Lucas Van Ness, backing them up, Barron Sorrell, and our boy Kingsley Enagbare. Behind that, you've got Brenton Cox Jr., and then behind Kingsley Enagbare, you've got Colin Oliver. And then you've got Aaron Mosby, who's seen a significant amount of time on the 53, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, last year.
He was active several times, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And then you got Deslin Alexander and Jeremiah Martin kind of rounding that out. I believe we all agree those 2 guys that if they make it, it's going to be on the practice squad. So with that being said, Brenton Cox Jr., 13% pressure rate last year, right? To me, outside of Rashawn Gary, now Lucas Van Ness, many people don't know this, but the second half of the season, Lucas Van Ness really started to amp it up. If he builds off that second half of the season, I would not be surprised at all if Lucas Van Ness has his best year yet this year and just comes out and it's like, okay, we got us a solid edge defender opposite Rashawn Gary. I'm expecting that personally. But in terms of the depth, I feel a lot better about the depth here with Brenton Cox Jr. and Colin Oliver backing up those. I mean, we're 6 deep at edge as opposed
already
to tackle. We were like, what do you
and
think?
We took 6 last year, right? We broke camp with 6 edge defenders.
That's correct. That's correct.
So Aaron Mosby fighting for that final spot, probably, I would think, between, probably Colin Oliver, right?
Mm-hmm. So we broke camp with 6. They were Preston Smith, Rashawn Gary, Lucas Van Ness, Kingsley Nabari, Brenton Cox Jr., and Aaron Mosby. So you're replacing Preston Smith, essentially, which we had already replaced him at the end of the year.
Yeah.
With Aaron Mosby, essentially. But you replace Preston Smith with our boy Barron Sorrell. And now it comes down to, do you keep Colin Oliver over Aaron Mosby? My answer would probably be yes, right? So now the question becomes, do you carry 7? I think it's no. And you just stash Aaron Mosby on the practice squad.
Practice squad, yeah.
Yeah.
He'd be relatively safe, right? There's a chance he could get signed, but there's a chance he could stick around too.
Yeah, definitely. See, Greg was asking Clay, how many pressures did LVN get in the second half? I don't know the exact number. I know Ryan did a significant breakdown on it because he was tired of hearing people complain about it. And LVN, his pressure rate was, I want to say it was 14, almost 15% in the second half of the season, something like that, which you guys know, if you get above 10%, it's okay. That's a solid pressure rate. I think Gary finished in the 13s. Brenton Cox Jr. was almost a 14. And when LVN really cranked it up, obviously, and he played with a broken thumb too. And I know there's some people that kind of roll their eyes at that. When you're an edge rusher and you got a broken thumb, good luck using your hands, buddy. So they even had him line up on the opposite side that he's natural to, because it would cater a little more to protecting that hand as he rushed the quarterback. So off of that opposite side. And thank God you had somebody like Rashawn Gary who could move around. And of course, Brenton Cox Jr. coming in and spelling him from time to time. If I remember correctly, what I remember, Tim, and keep in mind these left and rights are from the defense's perspective. It seemed like Gary lined up on the left and our boy Lucas Van Ness lined up on the right. And when Lucas Van Ness would come out of the game, they would kick Gary over to the right and bring Brenton Cox Jr. in to the left side, if I remember correctly. So this year, Barron Sorrell, man, if you get in a position where he comes out here and has a pressure rate of 12, 13% and is very effective in the run game, man, that's I think you're going to be in a lot better position moving forward, because then you can have that conversation about both Lucas Van Ness and Rashawn Gary. Listen, if Rashawn Gary, if he declines this year, right, even with a new defensive line coach and everything, then we can have the conversation of, is he falling off here? Because everything he did last year, in my opinion, I was satisfied with. That's why I got so frustrated last year hearing people run his name through the mud. It's like, this dude is your best run defender on the defensive line, and he's your best pass rusher, and people are ready to run him out of town. Yeah. So if Lucas Van Ness takes that step, though, and Rashawn Gary kind of gets back to his old form, and both of them being in their second year in Hafley's scheme, and Barron Sorrell comes in kind of like Rashawn Gary when he was backing up Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith, you got to feel really good about this edge room. So I'm excited to see how that all unfolds. You get anything else you'd like to add to the edge room there, Tim? Anything at all?
No, I agree with that point you made about, essentially, 1 year removed here from the departure of Preston Smith. You're basically replacing him with Barron Sorrell. So, I mean, feel really good about the edge room right there. And again, we talk about the camp battles and what camp's going to look like. It's going to look highly competitive at multiple position groups on both sides of the ball. And I think that's the recipe for building a good football team every year, is you have a competitive camp. You have guys that are going to make the team. You have your veterans that are protected. Obviously, everyone knows that. But everybody else, other than that small handful of those guys, everybody else has got to fight for their job. And it's going to make for an interesting camp for sure.
Yeah. Holmes MD1 says, I don't get the Kenny or Rashawn hate. They were third against the run in DVOA. I didn't even know that. That's wild. I know they were second against the run in terms of yards per carry allowed. He said you can rarely do everything elite. And that's the thing that I think many people don't want to take into consideration is like, you could take one aspect of an offense away, but you're vulnerable in the other. Like you can key in and take the run away. Yeah, you can load the box with 10 people if you wanted to. They're just going
to. And then they're just going to throw it over the top on you.
Right. And then you can, go out there and say, all right, we're going to play back, play shell and prevent the big play.
And they'll just run the ball right through your face.
Bingo. So the goal is, where do you find that happy medium, and where do you find a scheme that fits your personnel? And that's the thing that Hafley did so well. It's amazing how many people thought they were manufacturing pass rush last year. Like, yeah, well, he had to send more than he needed to. And it's like, once again, you're not watching the tape, because the large majority of the time they only rush 4. You're just seeing a cornerback blitz out of the slot, and you're not even noticing Kingsley and Igbare dropping out, and they're really just bringing 4. Or you're just noticing that scrape blitz from Edgerrin Cooper, and you're not seeing Igbare dropping back, or Mosby dropping back, or Brenton Cox Jr. dropping back. It's like,
take your eye off the ball when you're watching these games.
So it's the only way to truly understand it. It really is. So I keep hearing people say that on the radio, and I'm like, God almighty, it makes my head hurt. I'm like, you guys are making it sound like it was damn Buddy Ryan out there with the 46 defense. Like, what are we even talking about? Like, they were not blitzing 6. You guys, they were making it sound like they were firing 6 70% of the time. Like, what are we even doing here? So anyway, I don't get to hate either of their homes, but people are going to fan how they want to fan. And all you can do is just try to watch the tape and point out to people, well, now look, here's what's actually happening, or here's how I see it. Try to do it in a not so rude way, because I definitely do not have this whole thing figured out. So I'm learning every day and trying to get a little bit better at understanding what Hafley's trying to do with the defense. Another thing, I'm really proud of the way we covered Hafley as a group, and even the listeners here in the chat as well. When he came in the league, how many people in the media were going, they're going to a man-heavy scheme, and this is what everybody wanted, the press man. And I'm looking up going, boys, they're not going to play predominant man coverage. And we talked about it over and over and over, and then everybody just acted all of a sudden surprised that, oh, no, they're actually playing zone. No crap, Sherlock. And what's crazy is they didn't even cover the big surprise, which was I was expecting him, when he was last in the league, in the coaching tree he came from Robert Saleh and Pete Carroll and all those guys, I was expecting a cover 3 zone heavy defense. And what did he do? And while the media was stuck on, well, they're going to run man, I'm going, no, they'll probably play predominant zone and play cover 3. They actually played cover 6 and cover 9 and a little bit of cover 7 as well. So with cover 6,
zone heavy, like we had anticipated.
Bingo. So with cover 6,
most teams in the NFL, right? Most teams in the NFL generally nowadays are playing predominantly zone.
Right. And if you're wondering what is cover 6 is half the field is cover 4, the other half is cover 2. And we played a lot of Tampa 2 as well. Matter of fact, I think I've got the graphic here, Tim. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. So here's the
graphic.
Yeah, here's the percentage that the Packers played last year. Yeah, boy, they were going to come out and play a bunch of man coverage, right? We played cover 1 man 16% of the time and cover 0 3% of the time, all right? And you can see that was the bottom third of the league in terms of percentages there. We played cover 2 man 0% of the time, less than 1%. Now look at what we ran the most. Cover 3, 33% of the time. I expected that to be in the 40s, maybe even the 50s personally, but it was only at 33. Why? Because we ran cover 2 at 25%, cover 4 at 9%, and cover 6 at 12%. So, and keep in mind that cover 2, the reason it's in the dark blue, we actually ran a whole bunch of what we call Tampa 2. And if you guys don't know what Tampa 2 is, it's essentially a cover 3 defense. It's your Mike Backer has got a mid read. And what it basically means is he's reading the 2. He's either reading the 2 or the 3 receiver from the outside in, the 2 or the 3. He's reading to cover the seam. So if the 2 or the 3 goes vert, whether it's a trips or a dub set, he's responsible to turn his into a deep middle third zone.
Yep.
So
it may explain the Packers' love affair with Quay Walker a little bit, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Quay is that dude in Tampa 2 coverage.
He is. You're not going to find very many Mike Backers in the league that can run vertically, cover vertically, as well as Quay Walker. That's his bread and butter. That's what he does the best. Underneath, reading and recognizing, not so much. Even playing the ball in coverage, not good. But he's just got that 6'4" frame and that elite speed at the Mike backer position to be able to get back there and cover that seam. Now, Edgerrin Cooper did it. If you guys remember the play that Christian Kirk got hurt on, perfect example. You'll see, I think it was Christian Kirk, if I remember correctly. They sent him on a vertical route, like a skinny post down the seam. Edgerrin Cooper flipped his hips, ran stride for stride, broke it up, and hurt him on the play as well. So Edgerrin Cooper can do it as well. So that's kind of and again, like, why wasn't I hung up on cornerbacks last year or this year in the draft? And like, we got to go out and get a bunch of corners. Is because when you look at the EPA per dropback this year, it was minus 0.02, which, if I'm looking at this correctly, made them tied for third best in the entire league in EPA per dropback, which to me is a very solid metric for determining how well your coverage played, that year. And now people say, well, yeah, but what if we don't have Jair? We didn't have Jair a good chunk of the year last year, so I'm not overly concerned about it, although I do want Jair back. So anyway, just a little look at the coverage there. All right, that's going to do it for hour one. For those of you listening on the pod, we're going to continue this conversation with the defensive depth chart. Let's do it, Tim. Let's hit linebacker, man. You kind of talked about it already a little bit. Now, keep in mind, this is showing our nickel defense, okay? So, obviously, when we're in their base 4-3, which is probably going to be, 25 to 28% of the time, then just slide Isaiah McDuffie up in one of the starting linebacker roles, okay? So, Quay Walker they've got as the Will and Edgerrin Cooper as the Mike. I personally agree with this. This is what I would like to see them do, is have Edgerrin Cooper be the Mike and Quay be the Will. Now, listen, they're very, very interchangeable. It's much like the safety talk we have in 2025, Tim, where it's like it used to be you had a box safety and you had a post safety. Now both of them need to be able to play both positions. Same thing with the Will and the Mike here. Now, what's beautiful is both of these guys are built to be the Mike. And I know some people think the Mike wears the green dot. That's not necessarily the case. The Mike, you can have the green dot and line up at will every play in the nickel. It just depends on what the call is. It also depends on what the weekly matchup is. Like, do they have a Y that's going to stretch you vertically? Okay, if they do, then you want to put your most versatile guy in the Mike position on that game out of your nickel so he can help cover that seam and tighten that window up a little bit. If it's a run-heavy team, then you may want to kick your traditional Mike over to the Will because they like to run a lot of weak side runs. A lot of things come into factor. But anyway, here's the depth chart. Quay Walker, Edgerrin Cooper. And then behind them, you got Isaiah McDuffie, Tyron Hopper. Behind them, you've got Isaiah Simmons and Christian Welch. And then behind them, you've got Jamon Johnson or Jamin. And we need to help me out in the chat here, guys. How do you pronounce his name? I've always said Jamin. I've heard a Kentucky announcer say Jamin, but I've heard other people say Jamon Johnson out of Kentucky, who was a UDFA. I don't know. I think it's going to be kind of hard for him to make the 53-man roster here, but it's probably going to come down to him and Christian Welch, I would imagine.
This might be the year, baby. Iola's own Christian Welch might be a Packer this year.
Or he might get scooped up again.
Yeah.
We're going to be heartbroken, right? So last year we broke camp with 5. It was Quay Walker, Isaiah McDuffie, Eric Wilson, Edgerrin Cooper, Tyron Hopper. All right. Yeah. That was your 5 last year. So essentially you swapped out Eric Wilson for Isaiah Simmons, right? Yeah. That's essentially what you did there. So what do you think, man, when you look at this depth chart here? Who do you think will be the 5? Let's assume we carry 5 like last year breaking camp. And keep in mind, we released Christian Welch, we released Christian Young, we released Chris Russell. Once again, you look at those guys that got released last year and the guys that would probably be in a spot to battle for a practice squad spot. I feel like the linebacker room got better this year. I really do.
Well, what do I think would be Quay, Coop, Zay McDuffie, Tyron Hopper, and Isaiah Simmons. What I'd like the 5 to be would be Quay, Coop, Zay McDuffie, Hopper, and Christian Welch. But we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. And for me, I think I would prefer Isaiah Simmons over Christian Welch because Isaiah Simmons was so good on special teams last year. Now, Christian Welch, if you'll remember, Tim, that was his kind of MO as well. And
he's
were
a hammer on special teams.
Definitely. And we were kind of let down. We were disappointed that they chose Eric Wilson over Christian Welch. At least I know I was for that reason. And then Eric Wilson ended up being a better player than Christian Welch. So it was obvious the right move, But now you can't take out Jamon is what everybody's saying in the chat. Is that what it is? Jamon. Okay. So Jamon Johnson, 9+ RES. He may come out in preseason and training camp and dominate in special teams and give Isaiah Simmons a run for his money as well. So, yeah, for me, my 5 would be, as it sits right now, Isaiah Simmons, and try to stash Christian Welch and Jamon Johnson on the practice squad is what I would try to do. So, as Coach Lynn says, the floor is definitely raised in the linebacker room. There's no two ways about it. So, anything else you want to add to the linebacker room, Tim? What sticks out to you here, man? I think it's pretty straightforward, right? Is there anything I'm missing here, man?
No, I think we hit it. And look for I guess off the top of my head, man, a not sophomore slump for Edge Cooper, and hopefully he continues to just be the monster he is. And then hopefully we see Tyron Hopper really step it up and get some more reps.
Gotcha. Good stuff. All right, man. Guys, I apologize. We're gonna have to wrap the show up here. We were planning on doing an hour 2, but got a phone call and I need to answer it. I'm sure everything's all right, but I just want to be careful here. Want to be safe. Had a family member call, so let me give them a call back real quick, and we'll just end the show there. I apologize. I planned on going an hour 20, but we'll just wrap it up there and just leave it as one episode. And we'll just ignore that break. All right. That sound good?
Sounds good. We can pick up where we left off, right?
Yeah, definitely. We get through linebacker, right?
Yep.
So, all right. So we'll pick back up tomorrow at corner and safety. I apologize, everybody in the chat. Thank y'all so much for hanging out with us. Let me go check on family and really, really appreciate everybody. So y'all have a wonderful evening. As always, let's go out and be the change we want to see in the world, and go Pack, go.
And we go.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.